the substance which donate proton, we call that as acid. Another example, if you have, say, H2O plus HNO3. And when they react, mix with each other, it form a substance H3O plus and NO3 minus. And the question is, identify which substance is acid, like H2O or HNO3. So how you'll identify? So what you have to do, you have to check which substance is giving or donating proton. If it donate proton, the number of proton or number of hydrogen will decrease. So when you check water, H2O, first it is H2O and then it becomes H3O. This is called hydroxonium ion. H3O is called hydroxonium ion. So what happened? It donate proton or it accept proton. H2O become H3O. So number of proton increase. Whenever number of proton increase, it means it accept or take proton. For HNO3, first it is HNO3, then it become NO3. So if HNO3 become NO3, what it shows? This shows that it loses proton or it donate proton. So if a substance lose proton or a donate proton, what we call that substance? We call that substance as acid. So in this example, which substance is acid, HNO3 or H2O?
HNO3.
HNO3 is acting as an acid. So simple definition of acid, acids are proton donors or a substance which give H ion or hydrogen. Basically, you cannot say hydrogen ion. Reason for that, because hydrogen ion can be negative, it can be positive. So specifically, it's hydrogen plus charge. That's why we call that as proton. If in exam you write acids are hydrogen ion donors, so you will not get marks for this because hydrogen ion can be positive or negative. So specifically, you have to use the term proton donors or hydrogen plus ion donors or positive ion donors. Another example, we have H2SO4. We mix in water and this result HSO4 minus charge and H3O positive charge. The question is, identify which substance is acid. So which substance is acid here?
H2SO4.
So H2SO4 is an acid. How you identify? You have to check whether, look, first it is H2SO4, then it becomes HSO4. So what happened to proton number? The proton number decreases. So if a proton number decrease, what we call that substance, we call that as acid because it donate proton. So simple definition of acids, acids are proton donors. Is this clear? The concept of acid?
So can I say that acids are substances that when dissolved in water dissociate into H plus ions?
Yeah, that you can mention. or dissociate into hydrogen ion. If you say hydrogen ion, that's because you just shared the definition with me. If you say hydrogen ion, that's not acceptable. If you say hydrogen positive ion or proton, then it's acceptable. That's
Yes,
correct.
sir.
Okay. Then the acids, as we know, acids are proton donors. The definition of acid: acid are classified into two. Some of the acid we call they are strong acid, and some of the acids we call them as weak acids. What is the meaning of strong acid and weak acid? Strong acids, the molecule will break down so all the molecules will break down into ions. If all of the molecule break down into ions, we call that acid as a strong acid. What is the meaning? Example, if you have say HCl, HCl is an acid because it tend to give proton. Example, in the beginning we have 100 molecules of HCl. What happen when we add or mix this in water? So this acid, because it's an acid, so it will dissociate or break down into H plus and Cl minus. So what happen if 100 molecules are there, out of 100, almost like to 99 of them will break into ions. So if 100 molecules are there, out of 100, almost 100 or 99 of them will break into ion. If the molecules break into ion, we call that acid as a strong acid. So strong acids have more hydrogen ion in the solution. So if acid is a strong, it will have more H plus ions in the solution. And the standard definition for strong acids, that's what you will write in exam, is acid which ionize. Ionize means breakdown. Or dissociate completely. So acid which ionize or dissociate completely, we call that as strong acid. This is a standard definition. The term ionize or dissociation means when the molecule, if the molecule break into ion or change into ion, we use the term ionize or dissociate. This term is used when the molecule changes into ion. So strong acids, acid which ionize or dissociate completely, we call them as strong acid. So example, if you have HCl, 100 molecules of HCl, but what happened out of 100, 99 or almost all 100 of them will break down into ions, we call that as strong acids. So strong acids will have more hydrogen ion in the solution. But a weak acid, a definition of a weak acid, so weak acids, acid which ionize partially ionize or dissociate. Partially, we call them as weak acids. So weak acids, molecules or few molecules break down into ions. So example of a weak acid, say this is called vinegar or ethanoic acid. This is a formula for ethanoic acid, CH3COH. Also known as, common name is vinegar, used in foods as well. So what happens if I have 100 molecules of ethanoic acid? So when I add water to this, it will dissociate into ion. But what are the ions it will dissociate? It will dissociate into CH3, COO negative, and H positive. But out of 100, if there are originally 100 molecules, only 2 molecules or 1 molecule will break into ions. So out of 100, only few molecules will break into ions. And if few molecules will break into ion, so it will have few hydrogen ions. In the solution. So if it has few hydrogen ion in the solution, what we call this, we call that as weak acid. So strong acids have more hydrogen ion, where weak acids have few hydrogen ion when they dissociate or break down. Which one you think will be a good electrolyte? Like example, if I have a container and I use carbon electrodes for both containers, and here I place a battery and the lamp, and the other one also I place a battery and a lamp or a bulb. In the first one, I place strong acid. So when I place a strong acid, because strong acid will have more ions, so there will be many positive and negative ions in the electrolyte. And the other container, I took a weak acid. There are ions, but very few ions are there. Which one you think will conduct greater amount of current, or which one allow greater amount of current to pass through it? Strong acids or weak acids?
Strong acid.
Strong acids, because there are more ions. If greater number of ions, greater the movement of the charges, so greater current will pass. So this is how I can identify. This is one of the way. There are different ways to identify whether an acid is a strong or a weak, but this is also one of the way how you can identify whether an acid is a strong or weak. So when you pass the current, if the lamp appear to be bright, the intensity of the light is more, it means the acid through which you are passing a current, that is a strong acid. But when you are passing a current through a weak acid, the lamp will be dim. So if the lamp, the brightness is low, it shows the acid is a weak acid. So this is one of the way. There are different ways to identify whether an acid is strong or weak. So this is one of the way to identify whether an acid is a strong or a weak. So what you can do electrolysis. You can pass the current through a solution of acid. If the brightness of a lamp is, if it's brighter, or if it is giving high intensity light, it shows that the acid through which you are passing a current is a strong acid. But when you're passing a current, if the brightness of the lamp is too low or it appears to be dim, what it shows? It shows the acid which you have, it's a weak acid. So this is one of the way. There are different ways we will discuss in this chapter how to identify whether an acid is a strong or a weak. But this is one of the way to identify whether an acid is strong or weak. So if strong acid is there, it contains more ions. So, but you cannot see the ions. So practically how you can find it's a strong acid. So what you will do, you will use electrolysis. If the brightness is more, it means strong acid. If it is dim, brightness of a lamp is more, strong acid. If it is dim, it is weak acid. Is this clear? The concept of strong and a weak acid.
Yes, sir.
Take the screenshot. Then there's also another way to identify whether acid is a strong or a weak. That's by the pH of the solution. What is the meaning of pH of the solution? pH of a solution means it's a power of hydrogen ion. And the relation between the pH and the hydrogen ion, they are inversely proportional. Means if a solution contains more hydrogen ion, then it will have a lower pH. If a solution is having lower number of hydrogen ion, then it means it will have higher pH. So using a pH or a power of hydrogen ion, you can also identify whether acid is strong or weak. So as we know, if we have a strong acid, so strong acids have more hydrogen ion, so they will have lower pH. Where weak acids have few hydrogen ion, so it will have higher pH. But all of the acids have pH less than 7. Any acidic material is there, it will have always a pH less than 7, but you can identify from the pH scale that which one is strong and which one is weak acid. Example, you have acid A, which is having a pH of 5, and you have acid B, which is having a pH of 2. Which one, if the question is which one is a strong acid, how you can identify? You can use the concept of the pH. Strong acids have higher number of hydrogen ions, so lower pH. Weak acids, smaller number of hydrogen, so higher pH. So which of them is a strong acid? Acid A or acid B? Which is strong
Acid B.
acid? Acid B is strong acid. Why? Because you can see it's having a lower pH. So when pH is less, it means it contains more hydrogen ion. And if a acid contains more hydrogen ion, that acid is called a strong acid. So this is a second way to identify the acid using a pH meter or measuring a pH of a solution by a pH meter. So strong acids have lower pH and weak acids have higher pH. So either you can, if an exam they say how you can identify whether a acid which you are using is a strong acid or a weak acid. So what you can do, you can mention that pass the current through it or use electrolysis. So if you use electrolysis, if it's bright, it is strong. If it is dim, the brightness of a lamp is low, it means it is a weak. Or the second way to identify whether it's a strong or a weak acid is by pH of the solution. So what we can do, a pH of a solution using this pH scale, if it's lower pH, shows that's a strong acid. If it's having a higher pH, then it is a weak acid. But keep in mind, all of the acids have pH less than 7. Even it's a strong or a weak, the pH will be less than 7. Is this clear? So this is a second way to identify the nature